A very good afternoon to all of you. I welcome each and every one of you for this wonderful session on the future of digital transformation. What next? Today is day three of Ignite 2021, and the day was a day dedicated to the track digital transformation. And we have had a series of wonderful discussions over the day, and so we are today, this is the last session for the day, and we thought, why not what we understood today, what we learned during the course of the day today, and taking those suggestions and recommendations in consideration. And also, with this panel discussion, if we can cull out some very solid, action packed, concrete action agenda points for the future of digital transformation. And that is the expected outcome for the session. And we will be having our other panelists are also on their way to join us. While they'll be joining us, we thought we should start the discussion, and as they join in, I'll introduce them. So it is indeed an honor and privilege for us at GovConnect at Ignite 2021 to welcome all of you. We have with us Mohammad Afzal Hussain Sarwar, Policy Specialist, Head Future of Learning, A2I, Information and Communications Technology Division, Dhaka, Government of Bangladesh. We have with us Srimati Kobita Roy Das, DDG and SIO, NIC, Government of Odisha. Ma'am, I welcome you. Sarwar, I welcome you. And we also have Henry Wutsangbam, Head SEMT, Department of Information Technology, Government of Manipur. Henry, I welcome you.
Thank
And
you.
so, as we know, the future of digital transformation, what next? This is the agenda. So, uh, as an introductory thought for this session, I think enough has been spoken about it. Many practices, many new initiatives have been floated, initiated, led, implemented. But from here, where do we go? The digital environment offers opportunities for more collaborative and participatory relationships. The government services have been more towards people driven now. The digitization is happening. Digitalization is happening, and so every stakeholder, everyone in the value chain has so much to contribute. And how best can we leverage on each other's capabilities? Capacity building is very important. The case studies, the best practices need to be shared. What are the digital transformation, the challenges that have been there? How best can we mitigate and address those challenges? These are the basic pointers we thought we would like to have our discussion around. And my first question is basically, what are the initiatives that you have, or your department, or your organization, or your state has taken towards the digital transformation? But with this question, I would also request you to kindly introduce yourself. Over to ma'am, Kabita ma'am. You have to unmute yourself.
Yes. Thank you, Rajashree, for the intro and the Ignite team for giving me a chance to talk on the subject. A very good afternoon to all. I think it is a wonderful day that we have started discussing about next generation digital transformation. And of course, without talking about next generation of technology, we cannot rightfully justify the topic. While many emerging technologies still have not been explored to their full potential, I feel we need to analyze the side effect of some of the technologies from the perception of economic, social, and cultural, and before talking about next jump. See, for the last 30 years, talking about digital transformation, we need to think of ecosystem architecture as well. In the last more than 30 years, we have seen India going through its vast digital transformation. 30 years back, people to receive any government aid like pension, scholarship, employment, ration, etc., had to wait for more than a year to receive pension. and had to spend a lot of time, effort, and also money. That too after visiting the local and head office for several times. But now the scenario has changed. The same people are receiving faceless and contactless government services delivered at their doorstep and with a very easy and simple way electronically. So we have seen empathy touch every citizen through this digital transformation. In early stage, digital transformation helped efficient management and planning through creation of databases, management information system, queries, and reports. Now we are giving importance to improve our services, be it to citizens, to businesses, or to employees, etc. So if we analyze the trend of digital transformation, we have seen it to move from e-government, which is to improve efficiency of the government machinery, then to citizen-centric government with service delivery, then to convenience of government with mobile technology, and then to digital transformation with holistic visionary that is the enterprise IT, and now digital transformation with agile technology, with emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, robotics, blockchain technology, IoT, data analytics, etc. So if we see the trend, then we are moving towards a government with ecosystem technologies, with integrated services, with collaborative efforts of governments, private sectors, NGOs, civil societies, and with no distinctive boundaries or borders. So in future, we are going towards minimum government with maximum governance. But now the key question coming to mind is there an end to digital transformation? When will an organization reach this situation? When can they say or declare that they have completed or achieved the digital transformation? When will an organization know it is time to cut the celebration cake? So we can ask another question. After the digital transformation, what will be the next phase? Or what we'll call it? When an organization completes this process of digitizing operations, transforming back office applications and customer experiences, etc., what is after this? So Gartner is dubbing it as continuous next, which is the next phase of digital transformation. It will continue. In 2018, Gartner coined new thinking from digital transformation to continuous next. As per definition, digital transformation is a fundamental change in how an organization delivers value to its customers. So, how to maximize the value in a particular ecosystem? It is to manage transformation from objective to outcome. If we study, it has four parts: business process transformation, business model transformation, domain transformation, and finally the organizational transformation. And these transformation are technology induced, customer induced, ecosystem induced, and innovation induced, with the following goals in mind, like customer experience, operational flexibility, and service innovation. Now, when we talk about technology induced, we have concern about its side effects. Many technologies may be considered as advanced and make life easy, but not necessarily bring good fortune to human race if we don't pay attention to its rightful use. I think the time has come that we need to focus more on the dark side of many emerging technologies and work on reducing the negative impact of those on our life before jumping to next adventure. When we are making the life surrounded with tons of digital assets like mobiles, TV, smart TV, games like Xbox, WhatsApp, Facebook like tools, and Alex, Hello, Google like digital assistant tools. Maybe it is a smart home or digital door locker, or maybe you are depending on the machine to feed your pet. So when we make friends over virtual world, when we protest by clicking on the button on a virtual platform, or bullying a person you don't know personally, every time the device, the assistant or the software is not in the center. It is the human who is in the center. So we need to focus now to make that human capable enough to deal with artificial intelligent devices with their natural intelligence. We need to work more on our human capital, making them a digitally aware citizens. a digital citizen who is aware of the restriction on its actions before that action becomes a crime. He knows that all information on internet is not true. He knows how to behave in the digital world, that is digital etiquette. Just by making digital India or digital worlds around a young boy is just the beginning, but we need to teach him digital citizenship. The digital the concept of digital citizenship is now being taught in many countries. Digital citizenship is a term used to define the appropriate and responsible use of technology among users. When we are surrounded with digital assets, we should not forget that who is actually in the center. Otherwise, it will
Ma'am,
be a social
ma'am,
dilemma. Yes.
Ma'am, please allow me. Can I interrupt here? So, ma'am, in a nutshell, if I really ask you about the initiatives that you have taken or your just thoughts in perhaps two bullet points on digital transformation, what could that be? Because you have given a very delineated and elaborative account of digital transformation. So, just two bullets, if I have to ask.
Yes. Yes, it should be citizens should be taught the digital etiquette, how to deal with this technology, and
True.
we should be customer experience is our prime. That when because it is customer experience is also technology induced, then surrounding induced, then their behavioral induced, social induced. So all these factors should be considered, and we are going towards. We don't know what next technologies. Now artificial intelligence has come, robotics has
Yes,
come.
ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
then
yes.
yeah, but
Yeah.
towards going through the technology, latest technologies, we need to see the aspects of it. What are the social impact of all these technologies, and
Very true,
also,
ma'am.
and
Yeah.
yes,
So, ma'am,
and
what
yes,
I'll do, I'll just take up this same question with the other panelists, and then we move on to the second question. And you have just made a very valid point that it's really important that we have to digitally engage ourselves. We should also have that digital etiquette.
yes,
There have to have some parameters also. And end of the day, it has to be very collaborative, and customer experience is very important.
yes,
So anybody I am interacting with digitally is my customer, if I have to understand that. So,
yes,
while I'll invite Muhammad Afzal Hussain Sarwar for him to respond to the question. Let us all welcome Shri Ajay Chakti. Sir, you are a Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, Admin Reforms and Culture, Admin Reforms, and you are also OSD to Chief uh, Secretary, Government of Arunachal Pradesh. Sir, I welcome you. So good to see you.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Am
Yes,
I audible?
yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank
But
you.
sir, my this question now goes to Afzal Hussain Sarwar. Afzal, can we have you? I think he's gone backstage. In case if he's on backstage, uh, Afzal is there. We'll just Afzal. So we have one more panelist that who has joined us, Ajay sir, Ajay Chatti sir, our very own favorite Ajay sir. So now, Afzal Hussain Sarwar, you are working on the future of learning in the context of digital transformation in the morning. Um, a very senior official from Bangladesh, Mr. Anil Chaudhary, he just gave a very detailed and delineated account of the digital transformation journey that Bangladesh has undergone in the last few years. And hats off, good work that the team has done there. So over to you, Afzal. What are your thoughts? What are you doing there? And it has to be time bound. So I think in 5 minutes, if you can just sum up. Over to you.
Uh, Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me, Rajeshri?
Yes, we can hear you. All of us can
Hello,
hear
I
you.
am audible.
Yeah. Yes, you are.
Thank you, Rajeshri.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. One thing I'd like to mention that ICTs don't solve problems, but people do. It is with this foundational idea that Digital Bangladesh clarion call of Sheikh Hasina, the Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh, has brought the country's civil service and society together into action. And that action is to build modern nation with citizen-centric service through digital transformation. Honorable Moderator, Honorable Secretaries, respected heads of different development agencies, excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen who are connected from here from different parts of the world. It is indeed a privilege for me to address this august gathering. I would like to take this opportunity to draw your attention to some of the stories and share what Bangladesh has learned from them. So, as you know, as Rajeshri mentioned, that I am from A2I. So this is Absolution Server, policy specialist from A2I. And A2I actually strives to unfold the true potential within the government to create remarkable innovations that can ease and improve the lives of citizens. So citizens is our main focus, and to make the digital services for the citizens. As the flagship program of the Digital Bangladesh Agenda, we hope to inspire developing and developed nations on public service innovation and transformation by sharing our groundbreaking insights, supported by examples, lessons, and knowledge. And I'm sure in the morning session, inaugural session, our senior official, Mr. Ani Chaudhary, policy advisor, has shared many of the examples and stories. So, as you know, A2I is working with different ministries. I mean, all the maximum, making the services available for all the citizens with all the ministries in perspective of education, agriculture, health, citizen services, and different agendas. So, distinguished guests, I want to share one of the stories regarding education, and if I get time, I will share more. So the first story is about 23 teachers who told us that our approach is trying to inject technology in classroom, because in the initial stage during 2008 2009 we were actually trying to inject technologies in classroom, but the teachers has taught us that we need to build a social media platform for sharing our classroom content, I mean, teachers' classroom content and good practices, so that they can teach each other without having to depend on trainers whom we see every 10 years, if we are lucky. So that was actually was the beginning of ICT in education journey in our country in early 2010. And thus the award-winning Teachers Portal has born, that now hosts over 500,000 teachers interacting with each other and sharing their content from the different part of the countries. And teachers are now indeed training one another, and every day dispelling the myth that the professional trainers can only do the training. As a result, a fun and interactive learning environment for millions of students across Bangladesh is organically evolving. And that was the Teachers Portal. You can also, consider it like in your country's Diksha platform. So this is the communication, collaboration, and co-creation hub for the teachers, where teachers are interacting, learning from each other. More than 500,000 teachers are interacting there and they have shared more than 400,000 content for facilitating multimedia classroom and integrating ICTs in classroom. And that actually was beginning, and after that we have introduced multimedia classroom, and we have also designed an design for integrating with the pedagogy, ICT, for content development practices. And we have also developed a Mukta Party learning platform where teachers are learning from different courses. And this is also for our youth population. And in the COVID situation, doctors, nurses, and health service worker has trained from this platform. And we have also developed the Connect platform for our students, where students can learn, they can share, and practice 21st century skills among themselves. And during this pandemic, share that when all the educational institution has disrupted and shut down due to COVID-19, from the learning and experience from the teachers portal and all the initiatives in ICT in education, our teachers have carried forward the learning continuation for their students using different platforms. I mean, online platforms, using television content and also radio content, and sometimes they have used mobile platform as well. And millions of students have been benefited from this initiative during this COVID. And COVID actually has also taught us that blended learning is the key, because as the educational institutions was shut down, and at that time all the teachers and students were teaching and learning from the online platform. So this is also a realization that in the future or in the coming days after post-COVID period or normal situation, we need to go with both. I mean, in-person learning in the education institution and also the online learning. That means we need to think about blended learning in the future. And I'd like to share a second story regarding the service availability in the rural level that we call a Citizens Access Center, Union Digital Center, like Panchayat or this kind of local institution in your country, in India. So in 2010, when our Honorable Prime Minister and UNDP administrator jointly launched 405,000 Union Digital Center, most people thought that it was too risky and too early. Why too risky? Because private entrepreneurs were going to run this sitting in government offices. And why too early? Because in the year 2010, at that time, we didn't have that internet infrastructure ready. And and the willingness to pay by the underserved was unknown. However, against all the odds, these Union Digital Centers have flourished over time, and today it delivered nearly 5 million services every month, saving poor citizens over $1.5 billion in the last 8 years alone. And 10,000 new digital self-employed opportunities have been created, generating a monthly combined income of $600,000. This story actually leaves many lessons for us in Bangladesh. Number one, several years of experimentation, success and failures in 100 union councils, which is the lowest tier of local government in Bangladesh, gave us the courage and confidence to scale this up nationwide. Without this experimentation, we couldn't have possibly defied the conventional wisdom. And the number two lesson was that we focused on improving services by shifting them from the district headquarters, where 50 kilometers away, to the doorsteps of people, just 3 kilometers, within 3 kilometers. Inspired by these centers, Union Digital Centers, agencies were mandated to find innovative ways to eliminate age-old, non-essential steps in the delivery of vital services, including birth registration, land records, passports, and so on and so forth. So this type of many initiatives and interventions have been created and integrated from A to I, and we have also tried to develop the paperless offices that we call Nothi e-filing system. We have also introduced digital financial inclusion for different level for providing citizens safety net programs and others. And we have also developed digital health system like telecenter and different initiatives for the health sector. And for agriculture sector, we have also introduced many initiatives. So I'll stop here because considering the time. So if you have any specific questions, Rajashree, I'm happy to answer the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarwar. That was very specific and very focused and directed. And again, congratulate you and your countrymen and your colleagues and the policymakers, leaders there. Wonderful work that you are doing, and so much to learn from each other. And I'm sure in the we are already in talks with our neighboring countries, and we are doing wonderful work. And in the days to come, years to come, we'll have more such joint collaborative projects that we can undertake together with your country. So moving on to our next speaker, Henry. Can I request you to quickly introduce yourself and talk about the various digital transformation programs that you have seen or do you think are important to talk about here?
Good afternoon to everyone. I appreciate the previous speaker on talk about technology doesn't solve the problem, people solve the problem. I believe another one is the process solve the problem. So we have people, process, and technology. It's a conglomeration of all these three. So I believe more on the process. So before I start, I just want to give a brief understanding what people usually have it between the digitization and the digital transformation. Most of the time, people think that we will try to imbibe the new technology. It's good. It's not that I'm saying is bad, but that has to go hand in hand. So we have a people, we have a process, and we have a technology in hand to hand. But most of the time, what we forget is we try to run the system with technology or the people without changing the process. It was going on for since last 30 years. It works fine, but let's continue it and just we digitize it. So we fail to realize that we have to transform. So I believe on that this is a transformation. It's all about not just using the technology, but transforming the way we work. And keeping in this methodology, the state has implemented a few couple of projects that I want to highlight. The one is the way the government works in this pandemic period. It's about the e-office, where it has moved from the paper to the paperless in the span of 6 to 7 months. This is a commendable job from the state, where it moved from the being paper to the paperless solution, where the need for the government is to go to the citizen, but the need for the pandemic says is that do not come to the physically to the citizen. So there is a contradict in the concept, like we need to go to the citizen to solve the problem, to give a service, but the pandemic says that do not come physically to the anyone. So we need to virtually go. So we move to the e-office, which is one of the stuff that I want to mention, that the government has moved to the online of movement of the file so that the government can function when doing this pandemic. This is one thing that I just want to highlight. And another one is about the infrastructure. So we failed to talk about infrastructure. The improvement of the infrastructure is very important. We cannot go for any high-end like analytics when we do not have infrastructures. When you talk about infrastructures, that's not just about the computing resources, but the main important is the connectivity to the service that we are trying to reach all the villages, the Gram Panchayat. So this state with the leaders who have the understand the capabilities of the IT has focused more on the giving the connectivity to end users, which is very important. So the state has focused about improving the 4G connectivity in all across the Gram Panchayat, which is about 300 plus. And we are more predominantly more on the hilly areas. We have a lot of challenges, but the main issue is we cannot solve the problem when we do not have the connectivities. And one more that I would like to focus in that and during this, which is more focused in this period in the state, is about the business correspondence. We talk about a subsidy, we talk about the servicing, providing service to the citizen, but when the citizen is remotely areas or located areas, not in the prime areas, then you need to have some mechanism to provide the banking stuff where they can withdraw the money, or they can also even do some transaction on that. So the government focus more about increasing the number of the CSC that the business center is driving it, and converting the CSC, not just doing the transaction like issuing the marriage certificate or birth certificate, but about also giving the business transaction features to the remote areas. So these are a few stuff I would like to mention that has taken care in the during this pandemic or during this last 1 year, which the state has more focus on this.
Henry, thank you. I think you have very beautifully extended what Sarwar had to, yeah, you had what Sarwar had to say about the digital transformation and the role of ICTs, and because ICT is just an enabler, end of the day, it's people, processes, and the adequate app infrastructure, digital infrastructure, which is very important for us to take the digital transformation forward, and also the mindset, the acceptance, the will to do that. And that is why we can always see in the Indian context, at least, we see a particular geography is doing really well, whereas because of other challenges also, the other geography is still trying to cope up with the basic infrastructure, digital infrastructure there. So I'll come back to the next level of questions, but before that, I would request Shri Ajay Chakti to Ajay sir, can you hear us? Ajay sir, yes. So you have to unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So please, sir, share your thoughts on digital transformation, the initiatives that are happening. Take us through your journey.
Okay. So I joined Arunachal government in October end, and it was a complete contrast to what we see in Delhi. So here, the first stage, that is infrastructure stage, we are in that. Normally, the phases are you get infrastructure, then you provide services, then you talk of quality of services, then you talk of home delivery of services, etc. In Arunachal, the situation is that the border districts, they don't get even your WhatsApp message. Sometimes it takes 1 day. Forget about downloading a video. This is about the outlying districts. The area of Arunachal Pradesh is really huge. It is the largest northeastern state, but the population is only 15 lakh plus. So it is there is a lot of dispersion of population. Investment has to be justified. Lot of hilly areas are there. There are landslides 6 months in a year. Your even your road network is an issue. So talking of broadband is a challenge here. So this is about the infrastructure part. But on the achievement part, yes, we have done very well, extremely well as far as geospatial technologies are concerned. So lot of mapping has been done, and lot of many projects are using the geospatial facilities that has been given by SRSAC, that is State Resource Center for this center, State Resource Advanced Science Center. So we are in tie-up with also Northeast Council, and there is a system with all northeastern states actually. So that is why the geospatial part is moving ahead. As regards internal aspects, office working, etc., e-office has been introduced few years back, and that was really successful. I was in Delhi for about 15 days, and I was doing my files from e-office. I would simply click saccess.nic.in and go to the website and download my files, read them, and then give my comments on that. So that was wonderful experience, e-office here. Achievements, this is the only part. We are now installing VSATs in some of the districts. Even VSAT connectivity is an issue here. The BSNL towers in Anjao, for example, if you talk of number of if you talk of calls, you will have, let us say, maximum of 200 calls simultaneously. That is the situation here. So great challenge ahead, and fine to be here learning from the people and how to implement things rather than taking them granted. Thank you. Thank you.
I have to unmute. Sir, thank you so much. You have very rightly pointed it out that, Arunachal Pradesh, the state has its own set of challenges, and it's very difficult also. Not exactly difficult is not the right term, but then you have to also very judiciously justify the resources that are being used because the population is very less. But then the services have to be delivered. Everything has, I mean, the digital transformation is one thing. The infrastructure, the services need to be delivered, but then you have to also justify the checks and balances as well. So I just saw Mugdha ji for just few seconds. Can we request my colleagues to take her in, Mugdha ma'am, Farhan and Fahim, Raman? Is it possible for us to have Mugdha ma'am also here? Okay, so I think while Mugdha ji, she's the Secretary Department of Science and Technology and Art and Culture, Government of Rajasthan. While she takes time in joining, I move on to my second question, which is on the future of digital transformation for us. So now there are two things. I also need to understand it for my benefit. One is the future of digital transformation, and what does digital transformation hold for us for our future. So there are two things. One is where do we go from here? Because we have had, in the Indian context at least, we had a 30 years of journey. We have been talking about it. Of course, COVID has given us that opportunity to just do it in few months time, to implement all our what do you call that, the policies, the programs that we have been thinking, that we have been planning, and we had to execute. One fine day we had to execute, we executed it effectively, considering the fact that we have a huge population and we are a highly densely populated country now. My next question is, how do you see this digital transformation is going to take the course of time in the future? Sarwar, if I have to ask you from the learning perspective, you said that you have education is one of the key pillars, key drivers of any country to grow exponentially. We have to build our resources, we have to skill them, we have to make them employable, we have to also provide for the global requirement. So, what is your take on that? How do you see Bangladesh contributing to the global digital transformation, or your country also for that reason?
Yeah, thank you, Rajesh. This is very important. Actually, you have rightly pointed out that COVID has accelerated many things, especially the digital things, digital technology using in different, spheres of life, including education, including health, including, daily needs, necessities, etc. So, if I consider in the education, as I mentioned, that COVID has taught us that the future of education is blended learning or blended education. So we need to think about how, online learning can be integrated with in-person learning. And that's why in Bangladesh, we are also considering to develop a digital education ecosystem where blended learning is a part, and we are trying to develop that blended learning framework where infrastructure, inclusive infrastructure is a very essential part, as Japti sir, Ajay sir, and Mr. Henry also mentioned that process and also infrastructure is important. So we need to think about inclusive infrastructure where every learners and every, marginalized learner or I mean, persons with disabilities or even underserved community, everyone can have that access to that infrastructure. And we need to develop and consider that kind of teaching learning practice that we can blend with online and in-person learning. And definitely teachers capacity building is very important because in this COVID period, teachers have learned many things to facilitate learning in many different ways. So considering that blended learning framework, this is also an important part. And as we all know, that content definitely very important, that content should be customized, localized, and contextualized based on the situation and learning needs. And for the assessment, this pandemic situation, it has been also realized that we need to think about the assessment that definitely could be formative and continuous assessment rather than just only summative assessment. And for this framework, we need to also consider the enabling factors that we call that we can consider the policy levels intervention, the management level intervention, and also this type of digital learning ecosystem or digital education ecosystem should be developed by partnership of government, private, academia, and industry. Because as we on the stage where we are struggling to face the fourth industrial revolutions, different challenges and skills need. So we need to think how we can move forward in the coming days. And just one thing I would like to mention that if we want to continue the digital learning ecosystem in the future, so everyone's participation is very necessary, and we need to learn from other countries as well, because India is very friendly country for Bangladesh, and in the South Asian country, what we're doing in the South Asian countries, what is happening in the other part of the world. So best practices should we consider, and we can intervene, and we should take that best practices and localize and contextualize in our cultures. That actually will give the platform for collaboration and moving forward in the coming days. That I can mention. Thank you. Over to you, Rajeshri.
Thank you so much, Sarwar. You have just very what do you call that? You have actually beautifully you have shared your thoughts about what all you're doing in the context of education, and I'm sure these challenges, the ones that you have mentioned, the agenda that you have mentioned, are also similar to the challenges that we are facing here in our country. Of course, scale is perhaps a little bigger, but challenges are almost similar. And thanks to the government of the central government, the central ministries, and the state ministries, things are moving, and we have been able to cope up with the existing situation. Now, Henry, I have the same question that I would like to repeat for you also. How do you see the future of digital transformation uh, hold for us, and in the context of course, Manipur and your experience?
This before I come specific, because most of the problem remain the same. Before I'm fortunate enough to work in a corporate for a decade, then I moved to the government. So like in the corporate sector is we do digital transformation. Why? So instead of what, we ask why. The first thing that we measure is ROI. So if I have to do a digital transformation in the corporate, the first thing is that what is the ROI for that? And then we come out with that the ROI is the profit. So how much I'm going to invest and how much I'm going to gain. But if I comes to the government sector, it's the reverse way. I invested it. What's my ROI? So it will be like a happiness in the face of the citizen. That will be the ROI. So now what I find is that we go for digital transformation, but we fail to ask why. So now the first thing that I just want to ask is whenever we do a digital transformation, am I doing the digital transformation because the emerging technology has come in the market? Because the private sector has invented a new technology, and the what we got is, I realized earlier, the most of the money is from the private sector. No, the whole market is in the government sector. So I have to ask genuinely now. I was in the corporate, I was in a different game, but when I'm now in the government sector, I realize the most of the ROIs is from the government sector. But the government failed to realize this. So we are not running hand in hand. We have to run in hand with the technology. We should not let the technology run and then we have to catch the technology. No, the problem is not about catching the technology. The problem is, have we created enough for the citizen? We fail to realize this. So I don't want to make it too technical out here. What I want to make it is that when we talk about citizen-centric, when I say citizen-centric, the future of digital transformation should be of real citizen-centric. When I said citizen-centric, am I able to discover what I am eligible for? I am a citizen now. I am right now in Manipur. Do I know what all I have that I can subscribe to? Like, what are the scheme I can have it? What can I apply? Can I discover myself as a citizen of India? What all the benefits I can get it? Can I apply easily? And am I being informed when I apply that what is the status for that? And then finally, all my needs are satisfied with the condition called complete. In IT, there is always a concept called complete. You cannot write any program without any complete, then you are half the transition left around. So I just want to ask the people here. Fortunately, a lot of people are there. Now it's global because Mr. Sarwar is also there. I just want to put a thought. Are we trying to catch hold about a technology that is moving at a fast rate, or whether we are going to solve the problem what we have? So what problem we have is the poverty that we want to eradicate. So let's use the technology to eradicate the poverties, not to solve the technology, because the private sector has invested a huge amount of money in creating the problem. I'm not saying that there's no denial on that, but I am to saying is that we need to address this. So I always take again now, the process transformation is what we need. What I see is most of the time is we talk about digital transformation, say next forward, but we try to do is converting into digitization. So the understanding between the digitization and digital transformation is still missing. So let's wait. Let's not run too fast, because if I say it, I need to move ahead, then I need to look back behind. Have I achieved what I meant to be achieved with what we have right now? So I want to leave the thought here to all the esteemed panel and the listener. Have we done enough using the technology that we have right now to achieve the goal of bringing a smile to all the people who are living all across? Most probably, there may be a lot of unfortunate people who doesn't have access to even see my face or my voice. We are all discussing here, but unfortunately, I think 70 to 80% technically, I say technically, because when I say technically means most of the time we say we have covered 90% of the network. But Mr. Ajay sir has pointed it out rightly. When you go to remote, he cannot download a message. That's a reality. So instead of digital transformation as a future, let's just look it back behind and try to go along slowly, and let's not catch by the catchy words of the private sector to increase the market value. Okay, because the government sector is the biggest chunk of resources. They have to get ROI. That's why I said the ROI is a profit for the private or the corporate, but for the government sector is to bring the happiness in the people. That's all I can put forward for the future of digital transformation.
Very beautifully, you have put your points across. I think this is what across government, across all the countries, across the world, they're trying to do to understand, to enhance the quality of life, creating happiness and the well-being. There are I mean, countries which have a ministry dedicated to the happiness, Ministry of Happiness or Well-being. I've heard. I mean, I don't know to name the country, but we have such countries. So this is at the helm of it. So any digital transformation, any transformation that we are talking about, the infrastructure that we are talking about, the capacity building, the training, the support, uh, we have to also see that we are able to bridge that divide gap between the haves and have-nots, not only digitally but also in true sense. Because end of the day, the impact has to be taken in a social context. That is very important, and that's where, and who is at the receiving end? The citizens, the users, the last mile, the last child of the last village of the country. So we have to think about that child who is going to be the who is already a digital native and who is going to be the, what do you call that, the flag bearer for all of us. So thank you so much, Henry. I mean, this is a very emotional but very practical, and of course we should not be chasing the technology is here to help us to facilitate what the agenda that we have set, that we have defined around SDGs or MDGs, and each country has its own set of agenda, developmental agenda. So, Ajay sir, before I come back to you, I just need to check on Mrs. Kavita Roy Das. If she's there, then we would also like to hear her thoughts on this. And ma'am, Kavita ma'am, are you there? I think she might have gone for a. She also has had some meeting that she had to attend. So, Ajay sir, what are your thoughts? If you can just quickly sum up in a detailed manner, of course. So you have to unmute.
Regarding future of digital technologies, I would classify it as A, B, C, D, and maybe F also. A is for
Right.
artificial intelligence, B is for blockchain, C is for cloud, D is for your data, big data, and if I skip E, then F will be for your facial recognition technologies, whatever you call it. So a
Okay.
big enabler will be cloud. I will start from A. Artificial intelligence is being used, for example, in education, in health. In education, people are developing tools or instruments whereby students can test themselves individually. Teacher need not test for the entire class at a go. Student can test himself. The instrument has the questionnaire, the talking points, the it speaks, and depending upon the answers, the quality of questions is enhanced or decreased. So that way they come to a level where they understand the level of student, and accordingly the lessons are given. This is not a extraordinary new concept, nothing innovative about it. I have heard some companies about some companies trying this methodology. Believe me, this individual assignment system will come, and the student will not feel ashamed that his marks are known to the class. The teacher will not be playing the role that he or she is playing today. Similarly, health. Today, the pattern recognition, for example, X-rays, chest rays, etc., your chest scans, etc., these can be analyzed by machines using AI, and they can predict or they can decipher what is the nature of the problem, what is the cause of the problem. But all this is possible only because there is lot of data, D for data. Data about what? Chest rays. So this is a game of correlation. If this was there, what was the cause in the data available in the base? But this correlation is not the real artificial intelligence. After 10-15 years, when the inflection point comes, we will have a real problem of losing jobs. This is not my prediction. This is the prediction of experts in the field. And India is way behind this. For example, the role of a doctor. We have few doctors today tomorrow the role of doctor will be less. The AI machine may be doing all this. The nurse will be more important than the doctor because it is a case to case different job. Doctor's work is to interpret, let us say, or let us say do some surgery, etc. Those machines may be able to do it better than the humans today. So even this skill may be not so important tomorrow, in the days of tomorrow. Summing up, AI is here to stay. In about 10-15 years, the inflection point is about to come. Let us get ready how to deal with it. B is for now blockchain. Blockchain has been experimented by various states. And one example is, the best example would be for land records, registry of land records. This is not a chain of transactions actually, this is a registry. Chain of transactions is another application. So we have to understand the nature of the problem. 2/3 of the cases in courts today pertain to land. 2/3. So if we can solve our land related issues with blockchain, the advantage will be that these cannot be easily tampered with. Records cannot be easily tampered with. Andhra had tried earlier digitization of records. That was not sufficient because the database administrator had the power, had the capacity to change the records. It was possible to write programs to delete even the audit trail, time stamping. You can simply write a program and delete all those things automatically. So you cannot find who did the mischief. So the record of rights can be changed by digital means. This is not the idea of digitization. So blockchain will definitely be help here. If your Patwari's powers are taken away by technology, the people will be empowered. This is just one example. There are n number of uses of blockchain, whether it is logistics, whether it is financial transactions. Singapore has introduced its currency, etc. Coming to C. C is for cloud, I would say. Cloud is going to be a big enabler when 5G comes. We would be able to download, let us say, movie in few seconds. But more than movie, it is about your classroom lectures which you were talking about. Currently, the quality of classroom lectures, video quality is not so good. In China, etc., they have used it so much in COVID times. They have been very, very successful in using this. And why about only this classes, online classes? Talk about teleconferencing, talk about a doctor talking to his patient who is sitting in a village. From a village, he cannot come to city so frequently. If the facilities of 5G are available up to the village level, then all the test reports, all the scanning, etc., would be possible through these things, cloud. So that is enabler, very big enabler. Coming to D, big data or data analytics, as you call, this is very essential for enhancing our revenues. That is one example. For example, a businessman is consuming lots of electricity, but showing nil sales in his trade and taxes return and sales tax returns. Now, can you match that? States have done it. Current tools, for example, IBM Cognos tools. So two sets of data were correlated and they found 56 crore rupees tax evasion. So the investment, the ROI that you were talking of was easily recovered in just one analysis. That is the type of analysis that we are going to have. For security people, let us talk of Facebook technologies. Oh, sorry, Facebook recognition, face recognition technology. I'm sorry. So China is using it very, very in a negative manner, let us say, but there's a lot of scope for security agencies to use these technologies, face recognition technologies, to identify the crimes and criminals. A lot of potential is there. So to conclude, to summarize, there are lots of areas where the technologies of tomorrow are coming in, and we are to a large extent unprepared for it. The developed world will steal a march over us if we do not train our people for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Ajay sir. Thank you, Sarwar. I think we have had a wonderful discussion here. Let us all cull out some good pointers here, and we do a set of recommendations that can be submitted to the respective agencies and stakeholders. And thank you so much. I think we have had a beautiful discussion on the future of digital transformation. While we have spoken about the technologies, there's also the processes that have been talked about. Digital infrastructure is equally important. Our resources, training, capacity building. Thank you so much, and all the pillars that we have: education, or health, or agriculture, railways. These are all our pillars. We have to work simultaneously. At the same time, we also have to take care of the readiness of each of the geographies in the Indian context as well as globally also. So we have to take things parallel. There has to have a very healthy handshake between the service providers, the government officials, policymakers, and international development agencies, think tanks together, so that we can leverage on each other's capabilities and we can move forward. Thank you so much for your time. I thank you, Afzal, for taking your time out, and Ajay sir, much appreciate. Thank you, all our panelists, and look forward.
I apologize my